Hello, this is Gordon West, WB6NOA, and you are tuned in to Ham Radio 360 Podcast.
MTCRadio.com presents Ham Radio 360, the podcast, with your host, Cale Nelson, K4CDN.
It's Cale, K4CDN. Welcome into the second roundup episode of Hamvention 2016. And we're pretty much done, guys. I've got with us KF7IJZ, Jeremy.
Hello.
And KJ6VU, George Zafiropoulos.
Hi, everyone.
I said his name correctly.
Hey, thanks a lot. I
Two
appreciate
times in a row.
that.
That's
About
twice in one night. So this is a historic moment because it is the first time we've all recorded while being able to look at each other.
Yeah, not on Skype.
Not on Skype, not
Across
with
the
the
country.
camera, like actually in the same room together.
And we look kind of weird. It's almost like Monday Night Football in here, you know, Howard Cosell and the microphones up at our mouths. Yeah, we've had a great time. It's been a lot of fun this weekend.
Yes.
George, we talked about what are we going to talk about tonight, and one of the things we want to begin by saying is a very special thank you to our listeners. I mean, we're all here together during this weekend for them, and it's been pretty amazing.
And we had so many people coming by the booth and saying hello and wishing us well, and it was just a real treat to be able to meet everybody and talk about the show and see what they like and ask them what they'd like to see and get some ideas for future episodes, and it was just great to meet people.
Yeah, and we met a lot of people. Jeremy, did you think we would see this many people this weekend that were coming to see us? Never
in a million years did I ever think that we would actually have generated as much buzz, as much genuine conversation at the booth. Folks would come by, and we got everything from the quick tap on the shoulder, hey, I really love what you're doing, keep it up, to the, I was out of ham radio for 20 years, and I came across your podcast, and I decided to go pull my radio out of the closet, or, hey, me and my 11-year-old decided to get our license together because of your podcast.
Yeah, it was amazing, and it was far beyond expectations. I thought we would be, hey, we have a podcast. Would you take our flyer and maybe give us a listen? And that was not it at all. We had people, and this isn't said, with bravado or bragging. This is just reality. We had folks standing there waiting to speak to us that made a point to come by our booth, and that was very humbling to me personally, and I'm so grateful that folks sent me here. And I'm only here because of our listeners, period.
And they were very generous to really help us along. That really made a big difference. Yeah. And it was fun, too, to see some of our other really good friends like John Pugliano join us and meet listeners. Yeah, that was really fun. And you talked to Sarah.
Yeah, Sarah Tibbetts came by a couple of times, and she was out wearing her pink Ham Radio 360 podcast hat. And I mean, everybody could see her from all over the place. You know, she was handing out her flyers, and she I think she had a really good time. I mean, she got to meet people and make the connection just like we did, and that's really awesome. It's one thing for us to get together on Skype and talk and have a good time, but to get there to stand there for 8, 10, 12 hours at a time and shake people's hand and listen to them tell you what they're getting from your production, that's like gold to me personally.
And there's a lot of encouragement about do a topic on this or do a show on that.
Antennas, please do antennas.
Antennas SDR was very popular. Portable operating was really popular. Gear review topics, new radios, lots of new radios coming out. Tell us more about those. Yeah. That was really good too.
We also had a lot of people stop by who said, hey, this is my first trip to Dayton, and I just got my license, or hey, I'm upgrading, and I'm going to go buy a new radio. I've got money burning a hole in my pocket, and what am I going to go buy? And I really enjoy getting to sit down and be like, okay, do you plan on doing this? How are you operating? What kind of antenna do you have? And really walking through a lot of those decisions. That was a lot of fun. I mean, just in general, every single listener we had, everybody was great. I think the worst comment we got was, dude, in your leading up to Hamvention episode, level your audio. Good show.
So, in all of that, just to reiterate, thank you, listeners, very much. We genuinely appreciate you. You made this happen, and we hope that you've enjoyed these update shows. I mean, we ran the second day of Hamvention, Jeremy and I did, on 1 hour and 5 minutes of sleep. And
well, I had 1 hour. You had 1 hour and 5 minutes.
I had an extra 5 minutes. And George, we woke George up early too. So
Kale calls me at 6 a.m. What y'all doing? I was sleeping, dude. Why you calling me?
In all fairness to George, that's 3 o'clock in the morning for him.
Yeah.
That's right.
But he gets to sleep all the way home tomorrow.
That's true.
So we've got another show we're gonna smash together for you. And today was a great day at Dayton. For me, it was real heavy in the morning, and I got to see Dayton on the inside, how people say Dayton really is. And it is bumper to bumper in the scooters, and you've got folks elbow to elbow, nose to tail virtually, and it was insane the amount of traffic in the building we were in. And I just couldn't get over it. There were so many people, so many hams, and people that never even heard of us. And you take their ear for about 3 minutes, and they're like, "Well, that sounds like something I'd be interested in."
Mm-hmm.
So that was really cool too. And it's not just the teenagers. It's not just the 20-year-olds. It's not guys my age. There's people George's age, and older, that are, "Oh, really? You're doing that? I'm interested in that." And that was really awesome. So again, I'm here to have met the listeners, and I feel like, who was it, MacArthur? I'll be back. I will return, and that's my plan, to be here next year.
I thought that was Arnold Schwarzenegger.
No, he said I'll be back, but I think it was it MacArthur that said I will return.
I shall return.
I shall return. Yeah, we don't say shall anymore. It's King James 16:11. But anyway, let's talk about some of our favorite times in the weekend, because we want to get into the program, because we've got some more great interview stuff from the vendors, manufacturers, and people there. George, do you want to kick us off with your favorite?
Oh man, it's so hard. It's so hard to pick. I think everybody I talked to that was interviewed for the podcast, everybody had an interesting story. The two that really, I'm going to go with two that really popped in my mind. One was being able to sit down with Eric and talk about the KX2. And I was at FDIM, and the room was full of people. And Eric's presentation was really interesting, and everybody was so excited about the new radio. So that was just exciting. Just a new radio coming out to an audience who really loves that stuff. And so that was great. The other one that I think was really sort of special for me was talking to Ulrich from Begali Keys. And the reason is, when you talk to Ulrich and you ask him about why are these keys important and how are they made and what's the skill behind them, and there's so much depth to something that you think is so simple, just a telegraph key, but there's so much to the artistry of the manufacturing of it and the love of doing it right. And I just loved that. So that just was a great story.
And I was so close to buying a key today, although I know only K&M.
He was very close.
I was very close, and time got away from us. And that's okay. We'll get there. I'll be back.
Next year.
Yeah, next year. So, Jeremy, tell us one or two of your favorite things that have happened this weekend regarding the show.
Well, so I think of the three of us, I spent the least amount of time in the booth. Probably I was out, pounding the pavement, and trying to get a lot of interviews in, especially today. I think the first thing that was my favorite is the fact that I tried as much as possible to follow up with just about everybody we talked to last year, and it was really cool to be remembered. I mean, and these are some of these people I've seen, a couple of years in a row at Dayton, but I've only seen them once. And to be greeted with that big smile and like, "Hey, I heard you changed the name and congratulations," that was pretty outstanding. The other thing that I really enjoyed was, so I kind of realized that when we're at Dayton, we're kind of like a little news crew, right? I mean, there are stories that were uncovered by talking to vendors about trends in the industry, specifically around digital, like Fusion versus D-Star versus DMR. Like, there are these little micro trends that we're able to, we've been there twice now, so we're starting to see these patterns, and kind of realizing that that's the role that we have to bring that type of information to you, our listeners, and really having the responsibility to get that right was also really cool. What was not cool is that every floor in Dayton but one is concrete. So my dogs are tired.
Yeah, and it doesn't take long. The concrete's no fun. And we weren't on the wooden floor. They gave that to Gordon. He had the wooden floor. Gordon and Flex got the wooden floor.
So I'll ask one question. Okay. What would you improve or do differently for next year?
Me personally?
Sure.
I would try to be here on Thursday, because I think that would by me being here, helping with the setup, helping with the pre-work, instead of just rushing in at 10 o'clock on Friday morning and trying to find a booth and meeting my co-host for the very first time, like, that's like a baptism by fire. And that's how it was, ladies and gentlemen. I walk into the building, I locate the booth, and they're my co-hosts for the last 2 years that I've never met before. And it was a really awesome experience. And we had listeners standing there wondering where I was at. So that was kind of cool, too, that everybody kind of turns around at the same time, like, there's the bearded guy from South Carolina.
And I'll add, by the way, when you show up and we just sort of carried on, it's like, hey, Kale's here. So, Kale's here, so we'll, like, carry on.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, oh, my God, I've never, it was
we just rolled.
Just another day.
And we called up with bear hugs a few minutes later.
Yeah, because we realized,
very manly bear hugs.
Totally manly, friendly, platonic bear hugs.
Yeah. But, yeah, that would be one thing. The second thing is that with us having the presence we had, I would probably work up some sort of tabletop rig to be able to. We wanted to connect with our listeners while we were there, and then we were so busy we didn't have time to get the gear out and set it up and get them to come over, and because I really wanted to get some names and calls and whatever, but we were so busy talking to people that just never happened. So we apologize for that, but at the same time, I would rather have spent the 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes talking to folks and getting to the guts of why they're even at Dayton than to have stuff to play on the show. So, just a few things, but that's not even a big deal. The experience for me has been very positive overall. I mean, extremely positive, unreasonably positive to me personally, because it's been so far greater than anything I had anticipated. And I know that I'm like blowing it up, and Kale's just excited because he's there. No, guys, this was the real deal. This was really cool. And again, I'm just very thankful that I got to come. Thank you, listeners. And for all that we got to meet, and the guys that were retweeting, and the guys that were coming. There was somebody came by, took a picture of us in the booth today, tweeted it. I don't even know who they were. I didn't even see the guy take the picture.
I think that's really humbling, right? Because we're the ones out there taking all these pictures and tweeting them, and or pound signing them for George.
For us old guys, thanks, buddy.
But I mean, it's now people were taking pictures of us and saying, "Hey, it's Ham Radio 360." Like that's
a thing.
It's a thing. We're a thing.
Yeah. And to keep us all humble, we are still who we are, and we're going to keep doing what we're going to keep doing. Before we get into the show, you guys picked up some gear, and we've talked about it. What was the most exciting? Now, I'm not going to have an answer to this because I didn't get out. But, George, what was the most exciting thing, whether you bought it or not, that you saw at the show product-wise?
Oh, I think the KX2.
He bought it.
Yeah, because it's just, as Eric said in his keynote, it's honey, I shrank the KX3. And so it's an even smaller, really cool radio. So, it's just a little dream for portable, for, throw it in your backpack, hit the trail. It's awesome.
So, overall, I think... Man, do I have to pick one product?
Okay, George got two. You can have two.
Well, I think one of the coolest things is that there were more SDR vendors this year. My personal favorite, and I picked one of these up, is if you guys remember, Gerald was talking about the AirSpy. Well, AirSpy.us was there. I got to pick up one of the newly released minis. And while we were sitting here doing post-production, I was waiting on some files to transfer to Kale last night and hooked it all up. And we're in Dayton, and I was receiving airplanes from Cleveland, and here with really a lot of RFI and whatnot. I think the other thing that was really cool, and this is actually a reminder about the responsibility that we have to you guys as our listener, is I got to meet an old, I've only been a ham for like 6 years, so an old to me friend, Bruce Givens from Canada, who resurrected the DV-RP-TR V1 boards and was selling them a while ago. When we did our D-Star show, we talked about D-Star hotspots, and both George and I had kind of been out of playing with those for a while, and what I realized is the technology has moved on so much in the last 2-3 years. But getting to meet Bruce in person, who's somebody I'd been spoken with quite a bit online, and actually getting to talk to him was incredible, and seeing the MMDVM products was just unbelievably cool.
Yeah, well, I saw a lot of our booth, and it was a nice size.
It expanded.
It got larger.
It did. Eminent domain.
Yeah.
We kind of occupied the space next to us.
Dan Romanchik came by, Donald Gover. And, yeah. So, we had a place to rest, and that's kind of where I stayed.
Who was supposed to be in there, do you know?
No, it used to be INRAD, but INRAD was acquired by Vibraplex. So they're not in that space, and they didn't rent that space, so it became the Ham Radio 360 Lounge.
Yeah, and it worked out great.
It really did.
So we've probably gone too long because folks want to hear what we've recovered for them this weekend. So with that, we're going to just turn you over to the program like we did yesterday, and hope you enjoy what these guys worked very hard to get for you, because they walked around and got interviews all weekend. And today I think they got some good ones too. So again, we appreciate your support and sticking with us. And we're going to have an upcoming show in about a week and a half. So George, Jeremy, it's been a lot of fun.
Thank you so much, Cale. Thanks, Jeremy, buddy.
Thank you, George. Thank you, Cale. It was really awesome meeting in person. I'm actually quite sad that it's going to be a year before we get to do this again.
It's the grin and the swagger, bro.
It's the grin. It's called hashtag grin and swagger.
All right, 73, y'all. God bless you.
Hi, this is Mike, N8WFF, from Dishtronics 10Tech Alpha Mtron, and you're listening to Ham Radio 360.
I'm here at the AirSpy booth with Joe McElhaney. What was your call sign again?
KR3P.
KR3P. And you guys are the proprietors of AirSpy.us, correct?
We're the USA distributor. Actually, we cover the entire Western Hemisphere.
Wow, that's a lot bigger than I thought. So we just did an episode on software-defined radios, and our guest, Gerald, made me aware of your product, and I rushed over here on Thursday before the show even started to buy my own AirSpy. So tell us what you brought to Dayton this year.
Well, we have a few products we brought. We brought the original AirSpy, which is a software-defined radio that in itself covers 24 to 1800 megahertz, and will show you an instantaneous 10 megahertz bandwidth chunk. There's software called Spectrum Spy, which now will let you display virtually the entire coverage of the unit on one screenshot.
Wow. And is that different than SDR Sharp?
That is, it comes with SDR Sharp. It's written by the same guy. The package comes with SDR Sharp, ADSB Spy, which is an ADSB program, and Spectrum Spy, which is a spectrum display program.
So for our listeners who aren't familiar with ADSB, what is ADSB and why would somebody care?
From a ham perspective, ADSB can be considered the APRS of the sky. It's used to track aircraft across the United States and across the globe. It's very popular in Europe, and it's becoming more popular in the USA as more aircraft are equipped with that service.
All right, and in addition to the AirSpy, what else did you guys bring?
Well, we have a brand new product called the AirSpy Mini. It is a plug-in dongle based on the AirSpy. It has the same specs. It only covers a 6 megahertz instantaneous bandwidth rather than 10. But it's considerably smaller, although the AirSpy in itself is not a huge unit. In fact, we have a number of people that they are interested in the AirSpy. I show it to them, and they say, oh, I didn't realize it was this small. Because a lot of the other software-defined radios are fairly sizable units. Ours is approximately 2 inches by 1.5 inches by a little over 1 inch thick.
And so I bought a Mini from you on Thursday, and for those of you who are familiar with the RTL SDR style dongles, it's actually a tiny bit smaller than the RTL SDR.com dongle that I bought.
Yes, it is. It's about, I would say, maybe half of the square millimeter size.
Okay, and as I understand it, you guys also have a transverter?
We have the SpyVerter, which is, in the simplest terms, an up converter for HF. It expands the 24 megahertz lower limit of the AirSpy down to almost 0 megahertz.
Okay, so that basically lets it have HF coverage.
Exactly, HF and even below broadcast. And that, combined with the AirSpy, would give you coverage of just about any radio signal you would want to receive, with the exception of anything that would be over 1800 megahertz, such as if you were doing something with Wi-Fi.
Okay, and one of the other exciting things, you guys have a prototype of a new product here. The GPSDO.
Okay, it's not really a new product, but...
I'm sorry, I didn't realize it wasn't a new product.
It's not a new product. It's new for us. We have just completed negotiations with the manufacturer to sell that on our website. And what's great about that is it not only gives the AirSpy in itself has an accuracy that it's very stable, unlike some of the dongles that tend to drift around a little bit. But even with the excellent specs of the AirSpy, the GPS disciplined oscillator combined with that takes the frequency error in the neighborhood of how many parts per trillion, which if you're below 1 gigahertz, you're pretty much going to be exactly on frequency.
That's incredible. And so, yes, I didn't mention, but GPSDO is a GPS discipline oscillator. So basically there's a GPS receiver that feeds its signal into this box. Is that how that works?
That's exactly it. And what's great about our unit that we're going to be selling is that it has 2 outputs. So you can do a few things with that. First of all, you can run 2 air spies if you're doing SDR-based Doppler direction finding. Or you can set one output to run the air spy, and a second output you can set to 120 megahertz, which is the local oscillator frequency of the spyverter. Unfortunately, there's not a stock input on the spyverter to accept that 120 megahertz, but it's an easy mod to replace the oscillator signal built in with the GPSDO, and again, that gives you that same accuracy on HF. And when you're talking about HF, you're going to be within millihertz of the frequency that you want to be.
All right, and so what does the output of the GPSDO look like?
The output is a square wave. It's 0 to 3 volts.
And it sounds like it's configurable, because I'm assuming the AirSpy uses a traditional 10 megahertz signal?
Yes, it does. The second output is configurable not to any frequency, but to several frequencies, including the 120 megahertz local oscillator frequency of the spyverter.
All right, and for those who couldn't make it to Dayton and take advantage of the fact that you actually have minis in stock, which is not something that the rest of the internet seems to be able to say, if our listeners wanted to pick up your products, where would they go?
Our website is airspy.us, and we currently have the minis in stock. I can't guarantee that after the show we will. We do have more on order. We are expecting those within a couple of weeks. It's hard to keep new products like that in stock because of the demand. Right now we do have sufficient stock of the AirSpy and Spyverter, and just about anything else that's on our website, unless specifically stated that it's a pre-order item or an item that that we may have low stock on. But we try to keep the website updated with information that this item is not currently in stock or is.
All right, and then finally I ask all of our guests, or most of our guests when I remember, have you had a chance to get outside the booth yet and check anything out?
Unfortunately, that's the one problem with selling inside or even in the flea market. You are at the show on business. You don't have a chance to enjoy the show, which I do miss somewhat. It would be great to get around and see what kind of deals there are to be had, because I know there's a lot of them out in the flea market and inside. But what can I say? It's a sacrifice you have to make to sell.
All right, Joe, thank you so much for your time, and I can't wait to get home and play with my AirSpy more.
Oh, you're welcome. I hope you enjoy it very much, and if you have any questions, just give us an email. I'd be glad to help you out with anything I can.
All right, outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, I haven't been on much, but it is K4CDN, and I am Hamvention. I'm here in Hamvention, and I am with one of our former show guests, one of our good friends of the show, as we follow him around the parks of the nation's capital. It's KB1HQS, the number one park activator. I had to say that. Let me say it again. The number one park activator in the National Parks on the Air non-contest is Stuart. Stuart, how you doing, man?
I'm doing excellent. I have no complaints. I'm at Dayton, and I'm having a blast.
Been here 2 days at least, and you haven't bought you a KX2?
Well, I took a look at it. It's a pretty sweet radio, but I have not, no. I don't know if I can trade it in. I did throw my KX3 away in the trash can in anticipation for the new KX2, but I'm still looking.
And I followed him up, so it's now I have his former well-used. We're just kidding, folks. We don't throw radios away. So this is my first trip to Dayton. I'm sure you come quite often, I'd guess. How is this trip compared to some in the past?
Actually, this is my first trip here, believe it or not.
Really?
Yep. Of course, I lived in Maine at the time, so making the trip from Maine to Ohio is kind of a long trip. But considering I'm in the D.C. area now, it's pretty easy.
And you're here with your OEM?
Here with the old man, yep.
How did that trip go? Did you learn anything across from the other coast?
Well, he's a retired petroleum engineer, so I had an 8-hour lecture on geology of the glaciers for Ohio, West Virginia, and Virginia. So it was it was pretty educational.
So it is Hamvention, and that's very important to the hobby. Did you have any second thoughts about coming because you may miss this weekend worth of activating?
I have to admit, I had withdrawals on the way. I haven't operated a radio in probably 4 days. So last night while I was in the hotel, I decided to start my own program of hotels on the air. And I actually activated the first one. It was a Hampton Inn, and the designator code was Hotel Indigo 01. And I had 10 contacts. Some people had no clue what I was talking about, but the rest did, and it was good times.
Now, will there be QSL cards for that?
There will. There'll be QSL cards and certificates, and check out my website for details on it.
Yeah, and you can find a link to his website on the hamradio360.com site, as well as the KB1HQS. Is it .com?
.com.
Yeah. .com. KB1HQS. His name is Stuart. He is the number one activator right now. And people say, how do you get so many parks? If they've missed a show that you were on with us, tell us how you're activating so many parks right now.
Well, it's two things. Number one, I live in the D.C. area, and there's probably 50 parks within an hour's drive, so it makes it really easy. But if you have a park that's near you, take the laptop that you're using or the desktop, step away from the desk or the couch, grab your radio, get in the car, and go activate a park. That's pretty much what it comes down to. You just have to go do it.
Getting on the air.
Get on the air.
Also, Stuart, thank you for stopping by. It's been a blast to get to meet you guys. You can't see this because this is audio, but I have to extend my arm to its fullest capacity to get the microphone up to Stuart so that you can hear him speak. Stuart, thanks again for dropping by.
Thanks, Cale. Appreciate it.
All right, 73, y'all. We'll get George and Jeremy back with you in a bit. This is K4CDN Clear.
I'm here at the Connect Systems booth with Jerry Wanger. Did I get that right?
It's actually Wanger, but anything as close is fine.
All right, I can at least get KK6 LFS correct. And Connect Systems, of course, lit the DMR market on fire several years ago by offering incredibly affordable, well-built DMR radios for amateur use and also commercial use, correct?
That's correct. It's commercial business is actually much larger than amateur business. But we really liked the amateur market because it's more fun.
Well, I know that every year, you guys have been out here for at least, the last 3-4 years?
3 years.
I remember I was in the D-Star presentation when you made another major announcement of the Charlie Sierra 7000, which is the radio that I'll call the Rosetta Stone of digital modes. And I know there's been a lot of rumor on the internet and lots of talk of the untimely demise and this project will never happen, but you literally just showed me an assembled or partially assembled, partially populated prototype. It's sitting right here.
Yes. The reason why it took us so long to get to this point is the original approach we wanted to use wouldn't work right. We went through the trouble of designing a different version of this thing, but we couldn't do what we wanted until the technology caught up to what we were trying to do. The original approach was going to use some Chinese parts, but the problem was we couldn't get enough information to even use it. The manufacturer who's building our current products is telling us that the parts themselves, the data sheets, are incorrect, and you have to work directly with the manufacturer, and unless you speak Chinese, it's kind of difficult.
That sounds like a recipe to make it very easy to bring a new radio to the market.
So we ended up using a part from CML. It's called the CMX 7341, which is built by American and UK company. And everything is in English. The people speak English, and it's actually possible to do things. Now with this chip, they're building in capabilities of NXDN, DMR, DPMR, and analog. For the other formats, we'll have to work around that chip because they're not going to provide any support for the other formats at this time.
And when you're talking about the other formats, are you talking about things like GMSK?
Exactly. GMSK, D-Star, as well as Fusion and APCO P25 will be done around that chip. Basically the same approach that people use with a PC and a sound card.
So for our listeners who haven't been following along or may not be aware of the 7000, if you would kind of give the sales pitch of why this radio is really important.
Well, the problem with the amateur and commercial market is that if you want to do multi-formats, you have to use multiple amounts of radios. And depending upon your budget, that could easily be a few $1,000s if you want to use all the different types of radios. So our approach was to come up with a single radio that does all the formats at a very low price. And looks like we'll achieve it, and we're hoping, not guaranteed, but we're hoping we'll be able to start selling it at the end of this year.
So one of the other things, if I remember correctly, and please correct me if I don't, but originally was there talk of some ability that the firmware source code would be available under an NDA, but you would be able to release it to the community so that folks could modify the radio or make additions?
Yeah, all of the software is going to be released on the internet. You don't have to sign any NDA, but we do have copyright protection. So yes, you can modify our radio, but it doesn't mean you can take our source code and build your own radio for commercial purposes. We're not going to stop people from playing around with it for amateur use, but no, we don't want any direct competition with what we're doing.
So, do you guys have any other new products at Dayton this year?
Yes, we releasing this year. We're going to actually start shipping in September what's called a CS760, which is the successor to the 750. Advantages of that radio: it has a color display, as well as has GPS, Bluetooth, and a vibrator built in.
And that's a mono band available in 2 meters and 440?
Yeah, correct. First, we're going to get the 440, and later we'll do the 2 meter.
Do you have any idea about what street price might be?
Yes, we already announced the prices. The price for the basic radio without options is $299. If you get the GPS option, it's $350, and if you want GPS and Bluetooth, it's $399.
Now, does somebody have to buy the radio with all the options all at once, or can they be added over time?
They cannot be easily added. It's almost impossible. In order to add it, you're going to have to basically open the circuitry and solder some parts inside. We're not sure how many at this time.
Well, it sounds like you're not opposed to the idea of people installing them themselves, but maybe it's highly discouraged.
Yeah, unless you have a radio shop and you have the equipment to build and test things, which is usually around $50,000 worth of equipment, you're not going to do it yourself and get it to work.
Now, I know it's often hard for vendors at Dayton to get away from their booths, but is there anything that at Dayton that you are interested in seeing yourself as a ham?
I'm always interested in seeing what's being done in software-defined radios and what our competitors are doing.
Outstanding. Well, Jerry, thank you so much for the time. Today is Saturday morning where things are just starting to get up. I hope you guys have a lot of traffic and a lot more success. If somebody wants to know about your products, where would they go online?
They have two choices. You can join the CS7000 Yahoo group, or you can call us and we'll tell you over the phone what the status is.
What's the number?
It's 818-889-0503.
And what's your website?
It's connectsystems.com.
All right, Jerry, thank you so much. Have a great Dayton.
Thanks for having an interview.
This is Steve, KB3SII of QRP Works, and you're listening to Ham Radio 360.
I'm with Scott Robbins, Whiskey for Papa Alpha, owner of Vibraplex. And Vibraplex is a company that's been around for many, many years with a long history. And it's really interesting to see that Vibraplex is still around. And I know, Scott, you have been doing a lot of work to build the business and really be a significant player in the ham radio world. So tell us about Vibraplex.
Okay, Vibraplex is the oldest continuously operating business in amateur radio. We even predate the need for a ham license. We have been in business continuously since 1905. We're the largest manufacturer of Morse code keys in the world at present. I took over the Vibraplex company in 2009. I previously was an employee for Ham Radio Outlet in 1994-95. I was the sales manager for Tentec from 1995 to 2009. I went out on my own in 2009 when I purchased Vibraplex. And since that time, we've acquired some other lines besides the Vibraplex line. We bought out our chief competitor, which was Bencher Incorporated, in early 2015. We're now also the owner of International Radio, which does crystal filtering. We also represent Spiderbeam, U-Kits, and Easy Rotor Control here in the United States as well.
So you guys have a really broad product line, and that's all sold under the Vibraplex name, and is Vibraplex the website that one would go to?
Yeah, the website is www.vibraplex.com. We have a couple of other web addresses as well, but all of them feed back to the main Vibraplex address. Code keys are the heart of essentially what we're doing. We've got 37 different models of code key right now. We sell our equipment factory direct off of our website. We also, of course, sell through all the major dealers, every major dealer in the United States, AES, Ham Radio Outlet, DX Engineering, and all of the small companies carry us as well. We have dealers on every continent. We've got a couple in Japan, multiple European countries, Australia, a couple of South American countries. We're worldwide. We're little, but we're worldwide.
So a lot of guys that listen to our podcast are interested in learning CW, and they always want to know, well, what kind of key should I get? And when you look at keys, there's different kinds of keys. There's a big price range. Could you give us some advice on what you'd look for as a new ham getting into CW?
Yeah, I mean, the thing you'd want to go with, I operate under the assumption that almost everyone these days has an HF transceiver that's got a built-in keyer. So all you need at that point is a paddle to plug into the radio and a cable to go between the paddle and the radio itself. I always recommend that people start with an iambic paddle. You've got an electronic keyer in the radio. You might as well take advantage of it. You'll be able to send cleaner code, certainly with an electronic keyer, than you're going to be able to do with a straight keyer or a bug. And the people that you're working on the air are going to be appreciative of that as well. And what happens sometimes is, not that there's anything wrong with using straight keys or bugs, but we find that people have them, then they realize that their code speed is starting to increase. They want to be able to send cleaner code at a higher speed, and the ability to do so with a straight key gets outstripped pretty fast. They want to move it onto a paddle, and I say, well, you'll probably be happy with a paddle just right from the get-go. Plug it right into your radio.
So tell us, what is the difference between a paddle and a bug?
The difference is that the paddle essentially is a switch. I mean, you can think of the electronic keyer in your radio as a switch. You hit one side, you hear da 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 da. You hit the other side, you hear dit 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 dit. And if you were to hold one side down of the iambic paddle plugged into your radio to infinity, it would continue to transmit as long as you wanted to. With the bug, it's actually a mechanical device. You've got a spring that is used to send dits. So when you actuate it with your thumb, it goes dit 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 dit. Eventually, the spring stops springing and it goes dit 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 dit. And you manually form the DAs with the opposite knob. So you would have the spring action to go dit, 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 and then you would send da with your hand. So it's mechanical action, and you have some manual dexterity to use it. Well, with an iambic panel, you're relying essentially on the electronic keyer in the radio to make the dits and das for you. That's why you can send clean code. The das are always correctly spaced. The dits are always spaced. There's no human intervention, let's put it that way, except for just actuating the paddle to send code with.
So my very first key was a Vibraplex Electro Keyer, which was a single paddle that you would move left and right. It wasn't an iambic key, and I used that for some years. And do you still have parts, replacement components, contacts for those older keys?
Oh, yeah, very much so. We're able to repair anything from 1945 forward. We had a design change in the bugs back in 1945. So pre-1945 parts we don't have, but anything we built past that, the single lever paddles, iambic paddles, bugs, anything that's on the key we've got as a repair part. We can either help you fix it or we can fix it for you. We've got machine drawings of all the keys on the website, parts lists. I mean, it's really as easy as you can order parts by email. I mean, that's where we are in the 21st century. You want parts, you can send me an email, we'll get them out to you. Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, we do it all.
So let me switch gears on you a bit. You mentioned that you also have some QRP radios, and a lot of our listeners are interested in portable operating. In CW certainly plays into that. So could you tell us a bit about the radios that you have?
Yeah, we represent the UKITS line here in the United States. UKITS is a company that manufactures products in China. They sell an antenna analyzer, QRP, SWR watt meter, QRP antenna tuner, and a transceiver called the HB1B, which is a 5-watt CW transceiver that operates on the 40, 30, 20, and 15 meter bands. $299, very easy to operate, digital readout, all the things you'd expect a little HF transceiver to have. We sell other stuff for portable operation as well. We sell fiberglass poles from the German manufacturer Spiderbeam, portable antennas from them. They have a very lightweight multiband dipole antenna called the 404UL that weighs 14 ounces. 14 ounces including the coax, in fact. They're very easy to put in a little plastic bag. You can stick it in your pocket, take it with you, thin gauge wire.
So it sounds like you have a really great selection of products. Is there anything else that's new coming down the pipe that you'd like to share with us?
The only thing that we're doing new at the moment, actually, for Dayton this year is we're representing a German company called Easy Rotor Control. And ERC manufactures a hardware and software package that allows you to do point-and-click USB control of a typical antenna rotator. They've got about 90 different models of rotators they support, all the popular Yaesu, High Gain, Create, things that we all typically use for ham radio. The circuit board, we have them as kits or assembled items. The circuit board installs inside the rotor control box. You plug it into your shack computer with a USB cable, and you've got a rotator screen on your PC that has a 360-degree azimuth indicator. And when you want the beam to point a specific direction, you just move the mouse over, click on it, and the rotator starts turning. And very reasonably priced. We sell those between $89 and $119, and have had a lot of interest in that.
Thanks very much, Scott. Really appreciate your time, and have a great Dayton.
Thanks very much.
I'm here at the Linux in the Ham Shack booth with Russ Woodman, K5TUX, host of the Linux in the Ham Shack podcast. So this is kind of meta, a podcast interviewing another podcast.
If you want to call it that, I don't think it's a problem. We have lots of interaction with other podcasts, so sure, why not?
Well, I first became aware of you guys because I had heard that you had given us a shout-out back when we were Faux-Time, and I've been a subscriber ever since. You guys do a really good job. It's cool to see the Linux coming together with amateur radio, really advocating for open source. And honestly, one of the things I enjoy is you cover a wide range of open source topics and Linux topics, and it really keeps me interested and engaged.
Well, thank you for that to start with. And the way I found out about you guys is apparently we shouted you out, and then you guys shouted us out, and I saw the tweet, and I was like, oh, well, this sounds interesting, so we just decided to check it out. But yes, we try and cover as many things as we possibly can in the open source world and in the amateur radio world. We try and make it as broad a topic base as we possibly can while maintaining a focus on open source philosophy, particularly in the area of amateur radio. But there are so many other topics out there, ham radio based, scientific based, things like that. And we also try and cater to both the novice user and the advanced user, because there's something out there for everybody, and we try and make it as much about everybody as you possibly can.
So one of my favorite things about your show that really shows your commitment to open source is that every episode you play Creative Commons music.
That's one thing we started doing from the very beginning. Creative Commons music is a great way to let people know about openness and the way openness can be across multiple platforms, not just software, because there's open hardware as well. Creative Commons is open literature, open music, stuff like that. So, I mean, the philosophy covers all aspects of media and life.
Outstanding. So, you guys are at Dayton. How often have you been here?
We started coming here in 2010. We have been here every year except for last year. We weren't able to make it last year, so this is our 6th year that we've been here. We will continue to come here because one thing we've noticed is that while the hobby of amateur radio is an open hobby, you can find published schematics on how to build things and stuff like that, which is very much an open philosophy. At the time that the software was created for the ham radio hobby, it tended to be in the DOS and the Microsoft Windows days before Linux really took off, and so everyone started developing for Windows. So as time has gone on, you find that while the hobby is open, most of the software is not, and it's changing. It's a thing it's happening. It's kind of a slow thing, and we're just trying to augment that change.
Well, and to your point, I own more or less one Windows PC because most of my amateur radio software that I use is Windows.
Yes, one thing we've been trying to do is get people to understand that they don't have to use Ham Radio Deluxe to actually do their ham radio digital modes and stuff like that. And there have been many people who come here today, and we were like, well, we would like to try out your Linux software and get a feel for what it's like, and then they'll say, well, I'm running Ham Radio Deluxe, and we'll have to say, oh, well, Ham Radio Deluxe doesn't run under Windows, and then there's a slight sense of negativity maybe about that. It used to be that the early versions of Ham Radio Deluxe actually ran under Windows under Wine, or under Linux under Wine, but that's no longer the case. So getting people to change their mindset about that is hard to do, but we find that people are more open to it now than ever before, and it seems like every year we come here, they're even more open to it and more willing to try, at least. And with the idea of live distros so that people can, try it on their systems without having to overwrite anything, makes it a wonderful way to try and get into the hobby. And since it's inexpensive, i.e. free, they could try it, no cost to them, no risk whatsoever, and it's a wonderful way to get them to at least see if it's something they'd be willing to progress with. And I think for the most part, once they get a taste of it, they enjoy it more than they think they would.
All right, so let's try a little bit of a flash quiz, because to your point about folks who are coming from Windows, they know that's where the software is. So I'll kind of take Ham Radio Deluxe out of the mix because they try to be all things to all people all the time. But let's cover some common use cases. Let's start with logging. What's the best logging program or your favorite logging application on Linux?
Okay, well, we try to avoid using the term best when it comes to an application because there's a wide variety of stuff out there. So what we like to comment on are the most popular ones. And I would say for a logging application, CQR log is probably far and away the most popular logging application. That's not a contest logger, but for your general logging application, CQR log is probably the most popular. It integrates with the Ham library, so it gets your radio information directly into the logging application. It interfaces with Logbook of the World and EQSL and all that kind of stuff. So it's probably the most popular. Will I say it's the best? No, I can't say that because I'm not willing to say that. But yes, we'll call it the most popular.
All right, and you mentioned HamLib, and that's how we get rig control in Linux, correct?
That is how we get rig control. It's basically a database of interfaces between a computer and a ham radio. It's a list of methods for interacting because most radios interface with a serial port, which is basically just a straight ASCII text sending commands back and forth between the radio. And so it's actually very easy to control a radio, and all you have to do is have a library that says what commands need to be sent from the computer to the radio to actually do things like change the frequency, set the upper and lower sideband, and all that kind of thing. So the ham library is a database of all many radios, not every radio out there, but certainly a great many of them, that allow you to control your rig with your computer.
All right, what about, that's controlling radios, what about programming radios?
Well, programming radios, as far as like memories and things like that, the application that we hear most about is Chirp. And that's generally speaking for like mobiles and handy-talkies and stuff like that. As far as programming like an HF rig, I'm not aware of anything that will do that. I'm not sure if Chirp will or not. But when it comes to things like your Baofeng radios and all your Chinese radios that are a nightmare to program through the touchpad or something like that, the Python-based Chirp is the one that everyone uses.
All right, and then finally, what about APRS?
APRS, well, the most popular, again, that we're aware of is Xastir, which is XASTIR. That's the one that most people use for APRS. It does pretty much everything APRS. It'll send messages, it'll do location and everything like that. The biggest problem I hear about Xastir is getting map data. It uses OpenStreetMap, so it's all open source, but integrating the OpenStreetMap map data with Xastir is, generally speaking, a big problem for most people. And since I'm not an APRS user, I have not been able to answer those people's question, but maybe someday I'll figure it out.
Well, I'm disappointed you missed the pun opportunity with "it's a disaster."
Okay, well, it kind of is, yes, and I'm sorry I missed that.
All right, well, Russ, I really appreciate your time. We are planning crossover episodes. We're going to have you on Ham Radio 360 to kind of do a general overview and introduction to Linux for our listeners, and then George and I will be doing episodes with you to deep dive sometime in the future, to be scheduled. Thank you so much for your time. Anything you want to leave our listeners with?
No, thank you for the opportunity to talk to you guys, and I am looking forward to the crossover episodes, and I'm looking forward to letting the Ham Radio 360 listener base know about open source. And I know Cale keeps bringing it up that he's going to get into Linux and all that kind of thing, and we hope, if nothing else, that our interaction with you guys will get him on that road, get you all started.
So there's several of us in the family of Ham Radio 360 that look forward to this, because literally he calls a friend of ours, Gerald, from the side of the road, help me with my Raspberry Pi.
I actually didn't hear it.
Oh. Well, thank you very much, and 73.
All right, well, thank you, 73.
I'm standing here at the NSI Communications booth, a new vendor at Dayton with a table full of software-defined radio products. I'm standing here with Vasily Vasiliev, Radio November 6 Lima Hotel Foxtrot. Vasily, how are you doing?
Thanks. How are you?
I'm doing great. Welcome to Hamvention.
Thank you.
Tell us, what is your role with NSI Communications?
NSI Communications, it's our partner in the United States. NSI Communications represent our devices, our products in the US, provide supporting service, and
So I just noticed your box. So the radios are actually Expert Electronics?
Yeah. I'm from Expert Electronics company from Russia, based in Russia. Our main manufacturer in the Taiwan, because good logistic, and it's easy to send the world our devices. And we present our transceivers first time this in Dayton, Hamvention 2016. We like it because many interesting people many people knows what is it SDR radio, because SDR radio was born firstly in US, and many people knows what is it, and they are interested in new SDR transceivers. Many hams visited our stand and asked many questions about what is it our new baby MB1 transceiver. It's software-defined radio with direct sampling and a powerful computer inside there. All in one box. We said this is all check in one box, because you don't need to use additional PC. You can connect keyboard, mouse, to external display to device, to transceiver, and use it like usual PC with your lovely software loggers, digital log software, CW skimmers. You can make internet surface, check your mail, and in end of call your friends from Skype.
All right, so I noticed that you have, as you're mentioning, what looks like a traditional standalone radio. I see you also have computer-connected interfaces. So for the standalone radio, let's talk about specs. What bands does it cover for both receiving and transmitting?
Okay, our standalone radio is also our radios has receiving range from 10 kilohertz up to 160 megahertz. Our transceivers has it. And in transmitting mode, all HF bands, 6 meters and 2 meters band also. 100 watts HF bands, 50 watts VHF 2 meters band also is available. And this standalone radio has internal antenna tuner unit. Impedance of your antenna can be adjusted to output impedance of power amplifier. There is all.
So how much bandwidth is available on the display at any one time?
Device has transceiver MB1 has 2 independent software receivers with maximum bandwidth 312 kilohertz per each independent receiver, and at the same time can be used wide band spectrum scope, band scope. Sounds like band scope, and you can watch all stations in range 80 megahertz. for first Nyquist zone transceiver from 0 up to 80 megahertz, and in second Nyquist zone from 80 megahertz up to 160 megahertz. You can see it, you can watch it, you can make click per any stations, and your main receiver goes to the frequency to this station.
All right, and what is the bit depth of the architecture? Is it an 8-bit, a 12-bit, 14-bit?
16-bit receiver, ADC, and 14 bits transmitter. But transmitter receiver ADC for receiving mode has 160 megahertz sample rate, 16-bit, and the transmitter has 640 sample rate and 14 bits. It's enough for transmitting mode because main dynamic range about for TX signals 70, 80 dB, no more. But 14 bits DAC provide us more dynamic range, and it's enough for most operations.
Now, does your radio have any digital mode decoding like PSK31 or CW RTTY?
Not yet, but it's SDR radio. In our plans to add digital modes, firstly will be added PSK RTTY modes because it's popular modes for most operators, and then we will try to add other digital modes. Also in our plans to add decoding CW signals and shows calls on the spectrum scope. At the present time, expert SDR software, which used for MB1 transceiver for other our device, for example, Sun SDR2 Pro. The spots from the internet can be showed on the spectrum scope, and you can see, you can watch it on your screen, on your spectrum scope. You can make one click and you hear it.
That's you know, for hams that would want to use this for working DX, that's pretty innovative.
Yeah, sure.
So talk to me about the Colibri DDC and the Sun SDR2 Pro.
Sun SDR2 Pro, it's also transceiver. The same architecture as MB1. I am talking more. A receiver the same as MB1. 16 bits ADC, 160 megahertz sample rate. All main parameters the same, like in MB1. Transmitter also has the same characteristics, but output power 20 watts. HF bands and 7-8 watts VHF band. It's small baby, small form factor. You see, maybe 10 times lower. Maybe
it's quite small.
Yeah, quite small. Yeah, 10 times maybe more, maybe 15 times like MB1 transceiver, and also the same. Receiving range from 10 kilohertz up to 160 megahertz. It's used with additional PCE, has LAN connection for control, for IQ channel exchange between PC and transceiver for RX and TX mode. Used the same expert SDR2 software, but for MB1 transceiver it's changed for small display. Graphic user interface was updated for small 7-inch display. In the Expert SDR2 for Sun SDR2 Pro transceiver, it has usual interface for big display monitors, and it can be used, can be operated by mouse, like most hams do it. Also can be used with this transceiver encoder panel for control. It has a main knob, 3 small knobs for volume, RF gain, AF gain operations, or other. About Colibri, a few words. Colibri DDC is also direct sampling receiver, only in receiving mode. It has ADC with 14 bits. Resolution and 125 megahertz sample rate. It's lower than in the Sun SDR2 Pro and MB1, but it's enough for all HF operations and can be used in VHF operations too. It works up to 880 megahertz with undersampling in highest Nyquist zones. Also, two independent receivers, software receivers, can be used in one Nyquist zone and they can receive other frequencies. The same 312 kilohertz spectrum scope wide with bandwidth, and also can be used band scope with maximum wide 62 megahertz. You can also watch all frequencies. You can see stations, make one click, and your main receivers go to the frequency, and you can listen it.
So, roughly, what are the prices for these three radios?
For today, please wait. The normal price for Calibri DDC receiver it's $600. For Sun SDR2 Pro transceiver it's $2,100, and for MB1 transceiver it's $5,900. But we have a special Hamvention price for Calibri. It's $400. Sun SDR2 Pro $1,619. And MB1 $5,000.
All right, so folks, you heard that's a lot of good savings if you hurry and order. We will be posting this tonight, so they'll have one more day that they can contact you. Your products look amazing. If I want to know more online, where would our listeners go?
Thank you very much. We will be happy if our devices, if our products. If some hams will be happy to use it because it's good devices. And
all right, and we're being joined by Yuri Sushkin, N3QQ.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. It's Yuri with NSI Communications. If you want to learn more about the products, we'll support them in the United States, and website nsiradio.com. Thank you very much, and looking forward for your orders. Appreciate your help.
Thank you guys very much for taking the time. I mean, it's incredible to see the competition starting. You guys have some very nice looking radios. I just noticed that the MB1 is also a touchscreen. And just one more thing to make sure I'm clear on. So your host software you've written yourself as well. You're not using somebody else's.
Yeah, we use our own software. It's developed within about 6 years, and now it has good parameters and good functions.
Thank you guys very much.
And some reviews, check reviews on eham.net. They're 5 out of 5. Outstanding product.
It looks it. Thank you guys so much for coming to Dayton, and I can't wait to see what you guys have next year.
Thank you, Jeremy. Appreciate your hospitality.
This is Scott Robbins, W4PA from Vibraplex, and you're listening to Ham Radio 360.
I happened to run into somebody I never expected to run into, an old friend online from the DV repeater days, Bruce Gibbons, VE2GZI, all the way from Canada, here at Hamvention.
Hey, how's it going? As I said, Bruce Gibbon from VE2GZI from DVR PTR repeater days. So
you resurrected the open source, German originally designed DV repeater boards and are responsible for a lot of D-Star hotspots.
Yes, I lay that claim to infamy, yes.
In fact, Bruce and I got to know each other because I kept bugging him, when are you going to have an Ambi board available? I think I got the second one you made.
You actually did get the second one that was made. Actually, it was the second one. Right.
So I'm going to confess on the air, because when you sent me the whole package, you're like, I need the blank end cap back so I can make more that are stamped out. And I never sent it to you. I can drive home and get it right now if I know where it is.
It's fine. It's like we actually got a local manufacturing guy to do the work, and he knew what he was doing, so we were cool.
So what's interesting, though, it's probably been about 2 or 3 years. I was still living in Virginia last time we spoke. We kind of lost touch. And about that time, I kind of stopped playing with D-Star hotspots. And I come to Hamvention, and yesterday we spoke with Goose about the DV Mega and his other products. And come to find out, I've missed an entire generations of technology. And now we're not talking DV repeater, we're talking MMDVM. Right. What is MMDVM?
multi-mode digital voice modium. Software is originally designed by Jonathan Naylor. We got together with Jonathan, myself, and Jim McLaughlin. Jim built the interface board. I'm doing the logistics and coordinating, basically shipping and delivering of the product. It's taken off. MMDVM will support Fusion, DMR, and it will support D-Star.
So what is the thing actually? What do I do with it as a ham?
Okay. It's basically a module to build a repeater, a tri-mode repeater. So you can take a repeater and make it, as we say in Canada, trilingual. So it speaks D-Star, DMR, and Fusion.
Can I still use it as a traditional hotspot, connecting it to a radio as a simplex node?
No, it can't be. It's purely a repeater product.
All right, so it's not a DV node adapter. It's not something I'm building a hotspot out of. So what are some of the devices that works? I mean, what kind of repeater gear do I plug it into?
Okay. Well, you can build it up with standard analog radios. Motorola's do really well, but we've found lately a few of the guys, getting more and more, are starting to plug them into the Yaesu DR1Xs. They do a great job of making a tri-mode repeater.
So when we're talking about this board, over on the desk for your booth, there's actually an Arduino Due, or Due, I don't know how to pronounce that, an Arduino Due, which is kind of the Arduino on steroids. It has an ARM processor and a 80 GPIO. And then you guys have a little tiny whiteboard on top of it. And then what are all the components besides those two boards, and what are those two boards doing?
The actual modem code is written by Jonathan Naylor, actually resides on the Due board in the firmware. The interface board that Jim designed plugs into it, the whiteboard, as we call it, the Zoom board. You then plug that into your radios through the audio feeds. You plug into the host controller, which runs the MMDVM host code, either on a PC or on an ARM-based board, something like an Odroid or a Raspberry Pi.
Okay, and to be clear, there's no ambi codec on this. This is purely effectively an RF networking tool. And unlike the older products like a DV repeater, previously you had a chip that was dedicated to doing GMSK decoding or whatever C4 FM, but this is completely software defined.
Purely data, purely software defined. That's correct. No transcodings needed. No ambi chips are needed. So that is correct.
Now, we mentioned that you have this currently hosted on the Due, but the Due has recently been discontinued. So I just found out about this, and now I'm going to have to go buy a rare Arduino to play with it. So tell me there's a future.
There is a future. The Dues are still plentiful out of China right now, the knockoffs. We are moving to a new board. As you saw on the stand, there is a Raspberry Pi hat that is in development right now. We have a prototype on the stand. So yes, it has a future. It will be based around the STM32F. So it's going to be a neat board.
And the best part is effectively you're taking one component out of the chain, because if I get that board right on the Pi, that's a very small package to plug into repeaters. Now, you made a comment about Motorola's. Are we talking about MSF series, or can I plug this into a MyCore if you want to get that old?
I haven't seen anybody plugged into MyCores, but I've seen a couple of guys that want to play with the GR1225s. So you can play with those. I think some of the guys were playing with the Kenwood TK820s as well. I've seen guys playing with the Max Tracks, single radios. So there's a lot of stuff out there. Again, best place for this is the Yahoo group, the MMDVM Yahoo group. There's a lot of traffic on the group. There's some really good stuff going on up there, and it's pretty technical, so you got to kind of watch it, but it's a great place to go and hang out.
Well, and the best part, the Jonathan's involved. I'm seeing the groups that used to have their own little independent projects kind of coming together to form, I'm going to say, battle camps to make it dramatic.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's going to be entertaining. I think we have Brandmeister support, and we were just speaking to somebody else. It looks like we'll have DMR Plus support very shortly as well.
That's amazing. So do you guys have anything else here? Any other new products?
Oh, I think that's enough for the moment.
I noticed you still have your hair and it's not all gray. I'm sure we can come up with something else.
Well, we have the Rev 1.1, which is coming out shortly, where we're going to incorporate the clock. So instead of having two boards on your Due, you'll have one single board. Improved filtering, thanks to our friend Carlos in Spain. It's going to be a nice product. We're about a month away from bringing that out. So we've still got the Rev 1.0s, which we're doing a special on at $35 instead of $40. So yeah, that's doing well. The 1.1's coming out. We have the Pi hat coming out as well too. So, and there's some other things in the works with Jim as well too. So I think there's going to be some interesting things happening. And the best part about it is all open source.
So the boards that are available now, where would I go online to buy those?
You can go to one or two places. You can go to, of course, www.mmdvm.com, or you can just send me an email at ve2gzi@gmail.com. Yeah, I don't even know my email address. Yeah, so that's where you can go. Just drop me an email.
Outstanding. So you've come all the way to Dayton. Have you been here before?
I was here a couple of years ago, and it was considerably hotter than it is today.
Yes, it has been unseasonably cool this year. And as a recent resident, I'm very thankful for this. There's been a nice breeze throughout. And honestly, the sad thing is I feel like it's not as crowded as it was the last couple of years, but that's okay. So is there anything here that you're looking for to maybe take home?
I haven't had time to get away from the booth to do some shopping yet, but there's a few maybe things I'll take a look at. I need to go take a look at the DV4 mobile and a few other things, so we'll take a look around.
Oh, I didn't even realize that was here.
It's here.
All right, outstanding. Well, Bruce, it's wonderful to finally meet you in person. Thanks for all the help all those years ago. I now need to put my DV repeater up for sale, or maybe I should keep it as a collectible with AmbiBoard serial number 2.
It's a collector's item. It's a collector's item. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Safe travels home.
Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it.
I'm here at the Apache Labs booth in Audio Alley, and I'm standing here with Steve Molo, KI4KWR. I always want to say 4s for ours. How are you guys doing at Dayton this year?
We are doing great. Great attendance. Wish there was more, of course. But, we're here this year promoting the Apache Labs and in 110, well, let me say that again. 100 and the 10 unit, 10 watt and 100 watt units, SDR. Of course, trying to just get the analog user to come and check out the digital technology that's available, and they're asking the questions and we're answering as best as we can.
So we recently did an introduction to software-defined radios, and we remembered to mention the Anon radios, but realized that none of us were very familiar with them, so that's why I wanted to stop with you and talk to you about your products today. If you would kind of give me an overview of the radios that you guys have.
What kind of overview would you like?
More from because obviously all of these are computer-connected radios. You guys run your own software. Oh.
We don't. No, the software is actually Power SDR, okay, which is was used with the Flex style radios. It's open source, so it's not proprietary to. You've got to use what we tell you to use. If the software has the ability and capability, the radio will do it. We're not restricted.
So from a QRP perspective, there's the Anon 10, correct?
Correct.
And that comes in 2 models.
2 models. You have the 10 and the 10E. The only difference between the 10 and the 10E is receivers. The 10 has 4 receivers, 10E has 2 receivers.
Do they have the same bit depth on the ADC?
They do have the same depth. There's just one ADC Vice 2.
Okay. All right, and what kind of bandwidth are you getting in those receivers?
Bandwidth 300 kilohertz. Still covers the same 160 to 6 meters for the transmit. Your receive side, you have 150 kilohertz to 55 megahertz.
All right, and because those are, what we would generally consider a QRP radio, what's the power requirements to power the thing?
Power requirements, as we've been telling everybody, is it's rated for both units to have a 23 amp power supply. That sounds very big for a QRP rig. But once you start clicking more items on the computer that you're using, the more amps that the radio is going to, not the radio requiring, the software is requiring. So if you're using multiple receivers, you start digging into the filtering, you start getting really deep into that, transmitting that signal or receiving, the more amps is going to be required for the transmitting, not for receiving.
All right, and about what do those 2 radios go for?
This weekend, the radios, on average, the 10E is $915. The 10 is $1,549.
Now, are those Dayton prices or regular?
Dayton prices, and those prices will end on Monday.
Okay, we're going to actually post this tonight, so hopefully our listeners, if they're interested, can jump on that. And it looks like you guys are partnering with Gigaparts here?
Yes, we are the U.S. distributor for Apache Labs. So we are there, if you want to say, U.S. partner on getting this radio into the United States.
Outstanding. And if you don't get the Dayton Special?
If you don't get the Dayton Special, I'm not sure what the price. It's going to go right back to the regular price, which would be the regular price for the 10-watt version would be, you're saving right now this weekend $50 in the 10-watt versions. On the 100-watt versions, you're actually saving $400 on the 100D. The 200D, you're saving close to $850.
And I'm assuming that's a 200-watt version.
It is a 100-watt version. It just has more expanded capabilities on the board.
All right, so tell us about the 100 and the 200 then. What about their features and specs?
With the 100 and 200, cheat a little bit. With the 100 and 200, they have the same features when it comes to the FPGA, which, as I've been calling it, the mother brain. The 200D has a much bigger FPGA, which is, what's bringing in that signal and what you're seeing. When it becomes the difference, the only true difference is, and I'm thinking here, there's really no difference. It's just the board has that expansion for the future expansion that may come with software.
How many receivers?
7 receivers.
In each model?
In each model.
And bandwidth per receiver?
300 kilohertz still.
All right, and what's the bit depth on those ADCs?
Those bit depths are... It is a 16-bit if I'm getting it right, 16-bit. The VNA, if anybody's interested about the VNA, is 15 kilohertz to the 55 megahertz on the VNA aspect.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Now, do any of these radios have tuners in them?
They do not have tuners. So that is one disadvantage, possibly. But any tuner will interface with it, so it's just finding your preference for that tuner to use, manual or auto.
All right, if our listeners want to learn more about either the Onan radios or Gigaparts?
For any other information, first check out gigaparts.com. And if you want to see what Apache Labs also offers, just www.apachelabs.com.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
So, since you're here, and I know you work for a distributor, is there anything here that you're dying to see at Dayton?
What am I dying to see? As odd as it sounds, I'm actually looking for the DV4 Mini. The new, looks like a little USB thumb drive that does DMR, P25, Fusion, and D-Star all in one. I never expected to see it happen. I think a lot of people were looking for it. And when it's in the size of a thumb drive and now it's going to be a mobile rig and a base station rig, it's on my radar for this year. If not, when it comes available, it's going to be my next rig most likely.
All right, outstanding. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Shell, KF0UR from QRP Works, and you're listening to Ham Radio 360.
I'm standing at the Wireless Holdings booth with Uli AG0X. You guys are the creators of the DV4 Mini?
Yes, we are. And we are the manufacturers as well. It's made in the U.S., in Florida.
Outstanding. And tell us, for our listeners who have no idea what the DV4 Mini is, what is the DV4 Mini?
The DV4 Mini is a USB stick that contains either a UHF or VHF radio that acts as a hotspot for all digital modes, so D-Star, Fusion, DMR, DPMR, P25, and soon NXDN as well.
Wow, that's a lot of digital modes. So I'm assuming that you guys have a software-defined modem on there for the different modulation types?
That is the case.
Do you guys write your own software, or are you compatible with any of the open source products?
It's our own software. We have our own reflector system. We have DCS for D-Star. We have the DMR Plus for DMR. We have the FCS system for Fusion. And we have an own reflector system for P25 as well.
And are the DV4 Minis compatible with Raspberry Pi?
Yes, we have images for Raspberry Pi. However, we also have our own Linux system that you can plug into the DV4 Home. And we also have now, starting October, November, the DV4 Mobile, a tri-band transceiver with all modes.
So I was about to say, the DV4 Mini is almost old news because that radio has been generating quite the buzz. Tell us about it, please.
It's a mobile radio with two 20-watt transmitters in there, 3 software-defined radios in there, and 2 MB chips. It supports the 3 bands, 2 meter, 222, 440. And it has 2 MB chips, so you can not only use it for all the bands separately, but you can also use it, let's say, simultaneously as a DMR simplex repeater and a D-Star simplex repeater. It also has an LTE chip in there, so you automatically download the code blocks. Somebody changes the frequency on the repeater, it automatically updates itself, and you can also use LTE as a backhaul to your reflector.
Oh, wow, that's incredible. And is there any USB connectivity to a computer that you could use it as a hotspot front end?
There is an Ethernet on the radio, and there is a USB, both.
So Ethernet is even better than relying on a computer?
Well, yeah, it is. There is a Linux computer and with 1.8 gigahertz in there that drives the 3 SDRs.
So now, will your software be open source at all, or will there be opportunities to modify or add features from the community?
It has a modified Debian fork, and we will publish the operating system. We will also publish the APIs.
Outstanding. And do you guys have a price and an approximate release date?
The price will be around $1,000 plus minus 100, and we hope we can start shipping in October for sure for Christmas.
Okay, and if folks wanted to know more about this radio, where would they go on the web?
wirelesshold.com.
Outstanding. Is this your first time at Dayton?
No, I have been here before, but not as a vendor.
All right, so as an attendee, what is it you're interested in getting out of the booth to go see?
Second?
So as an attendee, what is it you would be interested to leave the booth to go see yourself?
I didn't make it off the booth yet. I'm looking for getting some duplexers for our DMR repeater that we are just putting up right now.
What band?
That's UHF.
Outstanding. Well, Uli, thank you so much for your time. Enjoy Dayton.
Okay, thank you.
Ron Kohanowitz, KC0QVT from Bridgecom Systems, one of our sponsors, has stopped by the booth at Hamvention. It's 2 o'clock on Saturday, 2:30?
About 2:30, yeah, 2:20. Yep. Yeah, 2:20.
So, speaking of 220, I hear 220's dead. You can't buy duplexers. Nobody makes equipment.
Oh, that's not true. Not at all. We have a repeater, handheld, mobile. We can get the duplexers. We can help you put a 220 repeater on the air or resurrect or remove the old one and put a new one in place of it. No problem.
So earlier today I interviewed Bruce Givens, and I mentioned that to you and found out that you also knew Bruce, and there's some pretty exciting stuff with his product and your repeaters.
Yeah, he does the D-Star, I guess it's the modem, and we've actually interfaced that to our repeaters. We can turn our repeaters into D-Star repeaters, no problem.
That is outstanding. So how's Dayton been to you guys this year?
This is our third year here, and I would have to say this is the best for us so far. We've grown as a business. Our sales are increasing. We got into 220 as a result of Dayton 2 years ago, and we now have a handheld, a repeater, and a mobile, and the market just wanted it. We learned the market there was demand, and we're satisfying that demand. So we're selling more radios, we're selling more repeaters, and guys are really enjoying it. For a lot of people, it's a new area of the spectrum that they've never enjoyed before. So we're here to support that demand. And we've got excellent customer service, excellent support. I do the engineering work. My sales and marketing guy, Tim King, KE0GWR, he's there to help. And we're growing.
Outstanding. Well, we certainly appreciate your sponsorship. It's been really good to meet you this year at Dayton, finally, for myself. Is there anything that you're trying to get out of the booth to go look at?
Oh, I just want to go around and meet a lot of these guys that we've talked to on the phone, other vendors. I do need to walk the floor and see what's happening. But this is probably one of the best shows I've seen as far as attendance. So, but I can't get away from the booth until just recently. So, it's been very busy. Very good.
All right, Ron. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Standing here at iPortable, which is actually not that far from our booth. I can see our booth from here. I am with Mark Mantia, I apologize, W8MDX. This year, you've taken what was a great design last year, moving from the heavy-duty construction of the original iPortable cases, transferring to the lightweight plastic roto-molded style cases, and I see now you have a second generation of that case.
Right. Yeah, we went to total ABS plastic cases now, and we added LED lighting. We've got the bulkhead SO239s coming out the front now, so if a guy wants to, mount his antenna or connect his antenna through the front panel, we've got that. We beefed up our USB ports for the iPad, so they'll charge the larger devices. And then we've got a 6U case, which has 2 front-firing speakers. You can put more radios and stuff in it.
And I see that you guys still have the power pole connection on the front, the fuses on the front, the headphone connector on the front, and some absolutely beautiful LED lights.
Right. Yeah, we didn't change anything on the wiring of it. There's still, circuit 1, circuit 2, which you hook up to your radios, and there's a cable that comes out the back for hooking up to batteries or another source of power.
Talk about that LED light, because it is surprisingly even lighting.
Yeah, we went with a LED strip lighting, and we put a dimmer on it. So when you're out in the field, you can really crank it down. Or if you're needing some work to look inside the case, it'll light up the inside also, and it is adjustable, so you can shine it down on your desk farther or up towards your radios.
All right, and it looks like they come in 2 different depths: the shallow and I guess a regular depth.
Yeah, we have 2 depths. We have the one that's it'll take a 10-inch, 12-inch radio. It's our shallow case. And then we have one that's a 16.5-inch for some of the bigger radios. IC 7200, which is a little bit larger radio. It'll take those. IC 718, I think, is another ICOM radio that guys like to use. So it'll accommodate the little larger radios.
All right, and I see also that the 4U, it looks like it comes with 1 shelf, and the 6U comes with 2.
Yeah, that's true. The what we call the 4US is the 1 shelf, and then the 6US comes with 2 shelves for just mounting. They're a little taller.
How wide are those shelves?
Shelves are 11 inches. So if you've got a sheet of paper, it's the 11-inch dimension is our width.
That makes measuring it really easy.
Yeah, so you take a sheet of paper and you put it up next to your radio. If it's smaller than your sheet of paper, it'll fit.
So I don't know if you remember, when we met at Dayton 3 years ago, I was trying to fit an ICOM IC7100 in it, and that's exactly what I did. I grabbed a sheet of paper and marked it off. Didn't quite fit, but still love that case.
Yeah, that's we figured that would be about the easiest way for a guy to see if his stuff would fit in one of these.
All right, and so if I wanted to know more about your product, or I wanted to order one of these, see pictures of it, where would I go?
We're at iportableus.com, and we've got all the information on there. We're a little back ordered after this show, but we've got a little list going. So 3 to 5 weeks, we can probably have them back on the show.
All right, and what are the prices?
We're running a show special on the 4US, which is the 4-unit high. They're $299. Regular price is $324, so $25 off here at the show, and the 6Us are $329, and they're regular $374.
All right, well, Mark, thank you very much. Is there anything that you want to get out and see while you're at Dayton?
To get out at the show, I'd love to see the show. I used to walk around and see the show, but now working in the booth, I don't get around, and I do miss. To me, Dayton is going around and checking out all the new stuff, and I do miss that part of it.
Well, that's the problem. You guys moved from the flea market inside, and you've been a hit ever since.
Yeah, I tell you, we only do the one show. We're thinking about going to a few other shows, but you got to come out here to Dayton.
And you're local, aren't you?
Yeah, we're just down the street here. Right.
All right. Well, Mark, thanks so much for the time. Good luck.
All right, man. Thank you.
I'm in the Yaesu booth with Chris Wilson, N0CSW from Yaesu. Chris, what do you do with Yaesu?
I'm the National Sales Manager for Yaesu North America, all of Canada, and all of the United States.
All right, and here at Dayton, I know you had 2 new products that a lot of folks are excited about. There's a new Fusion repeater and a new HF mobile radio.
Yes, we have the DR2X repeater that's being not released but being announced. We do have the repeater coming. Of course, we have limited information on the repeater. We have a few details, so we kind of threw them out there to get some feedback. Not to tease anybody, but just to get some feedback. It's still in development, so if there's some things that we need to change or things we need to do differently, we announced a few features. And we invited people back to the Yaesu booth to get their interpretation and their feelings on these features. So it was really successful. After the forum, I probably talked to about 20 people, and most of them had true heartfelt feelings towards the features that we're getting ready to introduce. So I think we're on the right track.
Outstanding. And of course, we've seen a lot of growth. You've released a lot of new Fusion radios available, the monoband 2-meter, the dual band 100. You guys have released a lot of products, and they're pretty affordable. And then you guys have had a wonderful campaign to get your repeaters out there.
Yes, we have. And of course, the approach was to put the repeaters out there at an affordable price to all clubs, groups, and anybody with coordination. We have the largest system fusion infrastructure in the United States. In the world right now, the United States has the largest system fusion infrastructure. Globally, we are the dominant digital mode, so there's not really anything anytime soon that's going to catch up to this project.
All right, and about the new HF radio, tell us about the FT891.
The FT891 is a fantastic radio. Its received quality reminds me of the FT991. So it's a 32-bit IF DSP radio. We're using the same TI IF processors that we've used in our previous generations and previous radios. So it's a very high-end 32-bit floating point DSP processor. Very clean signals. It's a very, very high-end HF radio. It's a very good performer. It is HF and 6-meter only. So it's designed and geared towards the heavy, dedicated mobile HF user. It does have a detachable faceplate. It has an optional FC50 antenna tuner, and it has a very nice dot matrix backlit display. And one thing that I particularly like about it is it has backlit buttons. So if you're in the car at night and you're trying to reach down there and grab buttons, you can see clearly what's written on them, nice big text.
One of the things that I think is really cool is your guys' backlight. It's such a high contrast ratio of the very brilliant white, very black text on it. You guys have done a great job with your LCDs using this technique. A lot of folks, of course, want to try to liken this to the spiritual successor to the 857, even though it's lacking VHF and UHF. But one of the things that's really cool, this radio is actually smaller than the 857.
It is a little bit smaller and a little bit lighter than the 857. I don't see it at all as a replacement to the 857. The 857s are shipping right now. We're continuing to produce the 857, so there's been no plans of discontinuing the 857 at this moment. It's geared towards a different set of users. It's geared towards the operator that's mainly focused on HF and HF mobile.
And along that line, I noticed you guys also released an antenna tuner with it.
That's correct, the FC50. And I don't have exact numbers on its matching ratios right now, but one thing that I can say from operating the FC50 is it can just about tune down a fence. So I'm not sure what the conditions of that are until I actually have a chance to sit down. I've only had the radio for about 5 days, plus Dayton travel, and being at Dayton, I haven't really had a chance to sit down with it more than just about 12 hours and play with it. So I'm going to really get into it when I get back and really see what it can do. We're going to try to break it and see how well it performs.
Do we have approximate pricing on the 891 and an approximate timeline for release?
Unfortunately, not yet. When we do a release announcement like this, typically it's within the next couple of months. Especially if we have something at Dayton here, it's within 60 to 90 days. I think it's going to be this year. I can't say for certain, but it's looking very promising. The radio's working well.
All right. Well, since you are at Dayton, did you get a chance to get out of the booth and look at anything you were interested in?
Unfortunately, I don't get to do much of that. I did browse the flea market and looking for my 6-meter gear, but I haven't found anything that wasn't rusted or a boat anchor yet. So, yeah.
All right, I know, and I've seen you running around working with all the dealers. So thank you very much for spending time with us. And if folks want to know more about this and upcoming products, where do they go online?
You can go to yaesu.com, or for System Fusion, you can go to systemfusion.yaesu.com.
All right, thank you, Chris.
Thank you very much.
We have a special guest in the Ham Radio 360 booth, Steve Bible, actually our neighbor at Dayton from Tapper, the Tucson, Arizona Packet Radio Association.
Well, let's so TAPR stands for Tucson Amateur Packet Radio, which, today is kind of what we were in the beginning when we started in the 80s, but we just call ourselves Tapper now.
That's good, but I will warn you that on the podcast we have butchered that acronym 500 times.
Oh, and believe me, everybody else does too. And it's just like the ARRL. It's the American Radio Relay League, which of course is also antiquated, so the ARRL just says the ARRL. So we all have our origins in something, and then we have to kind of get modern with the times.
It's funny because AARP is no longer the American Association of Retired Persons. It is now just AARP.
Okay, there's another example. So we're not unique.
So we had a great conversation last year, where our booth is right across from yours, which has been great because when people say, "Where are you?" I get to say right across from Tapper. Yesterday I got to see some cool stuff, including the under $40 Raspberry Pi Whisper transmitter or transceiver. So that's awesome. You guys have a great display as always. I asked you this question last year about what's the future, what's on the horizon, because you guys are at the forefront of the things that are exciting and technological in amateur radio. So what's new this year? What's coming up?
Okay, so you mentioned Zoltan Dolce's HA7 DCD, what he calls the Whisper Pi. We're demonstrating it here. We're already sold out of them on our first day. Very inexpensive daughter card that plugs into the Raspberry Pi, and it's incredibly popular. So we are an enabler. Okay, so we see these little projects and we get them manufactured, get them out there, talk about them. So Zoltan came to the Digital Communications Conference in Chicago last year, talked about it. We have a YouTube video up on it. Go to Gary Pierce's website, the AVRN TV. You'll see it there. You'll see it up on YouTube. So all of the Digital Communications Conferences, are video recorded, so you can go up there and watch them. But to your question of, what is the future, is it still continues to be digital. And so Whisper, Raspberry Pis, man, I'm just amazed. So we live in such a great world today that we have all of these single board computers, and there's so many to choose from. And it's kind of fun to watch, to see which ones kind of bubble to the top. And it looks like for ham radio, the Raspberry Pi is definitely bubbling up to the top. We do see a lot of Arduinos, and of course all the Arduino compatibles. You hear about the BeagleBone Black, and you see a couple of daughter boards for those, but Raspberry Pi definitely is winning out. Lot of processing power in that little board, low cost, $35. So it's really whatever you can plug into that. And now you see them basically as the processor of choice behind a lot of these projects. So what can you plug into those? All right, so the world's digital. So we're showing obviously Zoltan's daughter board for Whisper on that. That's very popular. You'll also see some P25 demonstrations at the other end of the booth here using just normal, regular, off eBay types of equipment. That's famous with hams. Hams have always managed to reuse a lot of surplus equipment and do some really great things with that. We continue with the software-defined radio. Again, software-defined radio, there's probably for a ham radio operator, there's like dozens and dozens of choices. For the past 2 years, we had Michael Osman of Great Scots Gadgets in the booth showing off his Hack RF, and his yardstick is now available this year, so that's new. This year, Michael graduated. He has his own booth. So we see Tapper now as an incubator. So we see where we get all of these new ideas and new technologies in the booth, and then they graduate to their own booth. So Michael now has his own booth this year.
So in that role as incubator, what do you guys have in the incubator right now?
Okay, so Zoltan's one of those incubators, okay? Another one is Brian Fields, and Brian is really a big advocate for using 3.8 gigahertz and also ham mesh so he's a big advocate, and he's a big vocal, get the word out there. And so we're helping Brian get that word out because hams have a tremendous amount of microwave frequencies that are basically becoming very valuable, and we're going to lose them if we're not using them. And I think a lot of hams out there have heard that term before. You got to use them or you're going to lose them. So 3.8 gigahertz is kind of that next territory for us. So there's some off-the-shelf equipment that you can get for 3.8, get it down to the ham radio frequencies, and basically set up an incredibly good, robust, internet on ham radio. And a great example of that is the ham mesh that's up in Seattle. There's another smaller ham mesh in Memphis. And then Brian down in the Tampa, St. Pete, Florida area's got another network that they're putting up. And then they're going to get it certified ham mesh as well.
So in addition to those, in the past, we've seen Tapper sponsor product runs and boards that are created by folks who work with Tapper. I'm trying to think. There was the HPSDR was a good example last year. What other types of those products, I guess I could call them, that are on the horizon that you guys are going to be sponsoring and make available for sale soon?
Okay, so we have, not only do we have, let's say, ham radio type associated, there's another side of the technical side of the hobby, which is called precision timing. So we have a number of these timing products. Now, they can facilitate accurate timing for experimentation with digital modes. And then there's also a lot of gadgets, like we have the T2 Mini, and it's a distribution. And it's a very low-cost distribution of DC to 150 megahertz. So we're getting that's up in production. So this facilitates not only experimentation, but also the test equipment that you have on your bench. So, you got to build those tools. I mean, if you're going to be a Jedi, you got to make your own lightsaber.
That's awesome. Did you like Episode 7?
Yes, I really did. I mean, can we not have more quality Star Wars? And now, did you see CBS has got a trailer for their rebooting Star Trek?
I did, but it was disappointing because it didn't show anything.
I know, but it sure was a teaser. But, like, rah, I'm there, man. Let's watch it.
Sorry, so we went off topic. Actually, I do have a question because we have friends who are obsessed with precision time. And, you used to be able to get these clock sources off eBay that came out of cell towers and whatnot fairly inexpensively. And then all of a sudden people realized what they were. The prices have gone up. Will you guys have a clock source?
I don't know. Let's go back and talk to the Time Nuts people and see what is available and what we can do to give something in the future. A lot of what I do is scouting and recruiting. So I go to a lot of different events, walk around, shake hands, hey, what are you doing? And I'm like, hey, here, come to the DCC, come to the Tapper booth in Hamvention, show your wares, because, getting the word out is hard for some folks. So we help them get that word out. All right, so we've talked about that. So to your question is, do we have this precision timing? Here's the other thing, too, is if there's a need, all we need to do is let's find out what that need is, and let's match that up with the people with the interest, and let's make it happen.
I like that attitude.
Well, and that's what Tapper's all about. So if you're really into the technical side of the hobby, now in ham radio, there's the QRPers, they're on the technical side. They like to build things. They know which side of the soldering iron to pick up. And then there's the microwave group. There's the VHF, UHF. You've got AMSAT for satellites. So if you're really into the technical side of the hobby, there are organizations. So Tapper is more generalist, and we do like to use digital techniques. And I say digital techniques to differentiate digital modulation modes, because Tapper has its origins in packet radio, but I want folks to know that it's digital techniques, not necessarily just packet.
Or not just PSK 31 or whatever.
Exactly. So let's get on the technical side of the hobby. Let's create things. Let's enable other hams to have fun with it. Let's enable hams to get their ideas out there. And quite frankly, if you're not having fun, you're doing it the wrong way.
So it's interesting you bring up this point about digital, because one of the things I have noticed at Dayton this year in talking with companies, and of course every year there's one or two more new small SDR shops that show up, is that digital to the average ham means RTTY, PSK 31, JT 65. But now, more and more when we hear the word digital, we're talking about signals processing.
True, and that's that digital techniques. Okay, so to differentiate digital modulations that you named off the real popular ones. So a lot of times, let's go back 20, 30 years, when you said digital, it meant RTTY. Okay, and digital today, there's a whole lineup. And then now we say, okay, now as our radio used to be an analog radio that we did digital things with, now we have digital radio. So this is what we call software-defined radio. So now the radio, instead of being an actual component like a mixer, now you're doing it in math. So really if you're really interested in that technology and understanding why that component that was an analog component that was a mixer was actually doing math. And that's kind of the fun of it. It's like, oh, okay, what was it doing? What was the mathematical formula of that analog component? Because, engineers and scientists long ago knew to get that RF onto the ether, we had to do this math. Well, they implemented it in analog components. With the high-speed digital components we have today that are incredibly low cost, that even a caveman can now do SDR, okay, there's no reason why you can't do all of the math. So there's a lot of self-exploration. There's a lot of self-learning here. The sky's the limit. What a great world we live in today. There's this thing called the internet, in case you haven't discovered it. Lots of information out there. All you have to do is just find it. And that's kind of the trouble. And that's where Tapper kind of comes in again, is we're trying to say, hey, have you seen this? Here's the talk. Here's the YouTube. And that way, I know that all of the people that come to the Digital Communications Conference, they're coming to sit and listen and learn what is the next big thing.
Now, one of the things I will say, as somebody who can have these conversations with these folks, and I know that I've seen the words before, but don't have the mind yet or the advanced skill set to truly understand a lot of what's going on. There is sometimes a jumping off point, a little bit of a gap for somebody who is technically inclined, but maybe can't sit down and talk to one of your folks about, DSP programming or FPGA programming. What do you recommend people do to try to bridge that gap from the, I get these concepts, into I really want to start playing with this stuff?
Okay, and that's a really great question, because we don't want to be an organization where, we're Mensa class type of folks, and that's not what we're trying to position ourselves. We're trying to position ourselves with what you just said. Hey, I'm interested in FPGA programming. I don't know much about it. Hey, I'm in the daytime, I'm a regular type of person, but at night I'm a ninja engineer. And so come by the booth, come to the DCC, have a chat with all of these people. So it's a lot about the socializing, rubbing elbows, asking these types of questions. But to help out with that question directly, there's a number of very low-cost development kits. So people know what it is they want to do, but it's like, how do I get started? Where do I go? Type of thing. If you got those kinds of questions, send those over to Tapper at tapper.org, and we can answer them for you. Come to the DCC, come to Dayton. Ask these types of questions on the forums. Everybody's had a start. And again, I can't stress how wonderful a world it is today, because let's say getting into FPGA programming 10 years ago would have cost $1,000. FPGA programming today is probably well under $100.
So there is one thing I would say about that comment about, you kind of have a project idea, know where to start. But we were talking last night about what I'll call the Raspberry Pi problem. People bought a Raspberry Pi because it's a computer the size of a credit card that costs $35. But I'm willing to bet that a significant percentage of them sit there. It's like, it was cool, I played with it, but I didn't really know what I was going to do with it. And I will say this is one of those things where it's the hello world problem, right? So sometimes it's you're saying, well, I'm interested in developing digital radio, I'm interested in playing with it, I'm interested in understanding. But sometimes it's helpful to have a guide that said, okay, we're going to walk through, first of all, getting a directly sampled signal into the thing, and then we walk through its modulate. So, kind of putting together materials that help walk you through the basic building blocks is something I think would be really awesome to have for members or non-members who are interested in starting to play with this stuff.
No, very good point. If that is missing, if somebody hasn't already done that, then that identifies a need. And then what we ought to do is sit down and do that. Let me put in a pitch for Michael Osman and his Hack RF. So you get the Hack RF, and Michael has all those Hello World videos up on YouTube, and he gets you started and gets you going with GNU Radio. So I know a lot of this exists, but if there's not a Hello World for Raspberry Pi getting you up and running, then we need to work on that. So that kind of goes back to about 10 minutes ago when we were talking, is we're out recruiting, but if you see something that's a void, that's a need, now you can't really just come to Tapper and say, hey, this is missing. What we're going to do is we're going to help you.
Good luck.
Yeah, we're going to help you get this up, okay? But it's the volunteers that do the work, and what better person to do a Hello World than somebody who's new to it? Because you get an old-timer doing it, they have this thing that's called the curse of knowledge, and they forget what it's like to be a beginner. But if we can match up an expert with a beginner and videotape that, that'd be magic.
I remember I spoke with one of your members, and I forget, I think his first name, you have a Jeremy?
Oh yeah, Jeremy McDonough, Derman.
Yeah, so, he's, if I remember correctly, an attorney by day, and then just decided, what, I'm going to go learn FPGA programming and implement my own radio.
That's true. I mean, and that's ham radio, and especially here at Hamvention. If you were to stop a random person and say, what do you do during the day, you'd get all the professions, no doubt. And, that's what's magic about it, because then this is how we network, this is how we get to know each other, this is how we socialize, this is us.
So the last thing I'll leave you with is I asked you a question, or we discussed last year about the big three adopting this technology, and then no less than a few months after Dayton last year, ICOM announces what has now become the IC7300, which is a direct conversion receiver, full SDR implementation in a box. So for the average operator out there who, they want to reap the benefits of SDR without understanding necessarily how everything works, it looks like the manufacturers are catching up.
I guess that's a hard one. Okay, the big three, all being Japanese, they are satisfying a worldwide audience. And quite frankly, if there's something you want, there is a manufacturer for it, okay? So that's where, Flex Radio comes in. Phenomenal, top of the line, new technology. They've been there for quite a while. So really, and I've said this to countless people for countless different topics, but you vote with your checkbook. So you can't go around complaining that something doesn't exist. Take your money where, and you support that organization or that company that does the technology that you want to do.
Well, and I'll compare the IC73, the 7300. There's a difference between an Arduino and a Bare App Mega Chip. The Barrett Megachip, there were a lot of development tools required. You might need to know even lower level programming languages, but the Arduino makes that technology by putting a layer of abstraction and available to everybody. And I think that's kind of what ICOM has done, is finally, SDR for the masses.
Okay, and it again, I think that's where do you want to insert yourself? And I think for a beginner who's, like you were saying, attorney during the day and then ninja engineer at night, is, okay, where do you want to jump in? But, jump. Okay, old Chinese proverb that says a project started is 50% complete. So it's just that getting started. And I agree. It's hard to get started for a number of reasons, and it seems like it's this wall that you're trying to push and fight. But one day that wall comes down, and then it's a tidal wave after that, and it's just getting past that wall. So don't give up. It's out there. The answer's there. It's just finding that answer. And the only way you're going to get it is to search the internet, search the forums, ask questions, come to Hamfest, ask people, say, hey, I want to do this. You'll find it. You'll find that community. You'll find that thing. And maybe you'll discover something you didn't even know existed, quite frankly. If you know what you're looking for, that's half the battle. But if you discover something that takes you down a whole new path and it's just exciting and fun, great. Follow that path.
Outstanding. Well, of course, last question is, you're at Dayton. Is there anything that you're out looking for or plan on going home with?
Well, I'm probably going to have at least a half a dozen Raspberry Pi 3s with me.
So I'll take a moment. I started building, cluster's the wrong word, but they're stacked together. And so I have a couple of 8-node Pi, quote, air quote, clusters supporting Einstein at home. Are you familiar with that project?
No, I'm not. I did buy a couple of that little $5 Raspberry Pi.
Zero, yeah.
The Zero, yeah. So I've got those on the bench to play with.
So my clusters, basically, it's a distributed computing platform similar to SETI at home. And if you remember the news about gravitational waves, this is the program that's taking data from Arecibo, distributing it, doing like binary pulsar searches and whatnot. But actually, a little plug, there's a Raspberry Pi team that I started for this, and that's actually been a lot of fun getting kind of plugged into signals processing that I have nothing to do with, but I get to watch my unit count go up as it completes things.
And how can hams do that? How can hams use their frequency and do this massive computing, and we can distribute it? So there's probably a germ of an idea there that hams can get involved with.
All right, let's develop that. Steve, thank you so much for taking your valuable time. I always love talking to you.
Great. Thank you, Jeremy, and it's great to talk with you again this year. Take care.
Thanks.